Hey, welcome back to the Lick of the Week videos. This is part 2 in the Salt Creek video series. And again, I'm calling these revisiting classics because we're just going back and brushing off some of these old standard tunes that we all know and love as banjo players. And hopefully I'm giving you some new ideas, new ways to play melody, to improvise with melody, to fill in around melody, and just basically spice up the versions of these tunes that you've already been playing. So this is part B of Salt Creek in the key of A. And let's see if I can keep everything in a camera shot here. Give you a close-up of the fingerboard. I am capoed at the 2nd fret for the key of A, like we were in the previous video. And there we go. I'm going to play what I'll call just a generic strokes version. Probably be pretty similar to something you already play or what you've heard played. And then we'll dissolve it measure by measure and figure out how to come up with some new ideas for this solo. So here's the standard version, I'll call it. So let's break that down measure by measure as we did in the A part. The B part of Salt Creek is a little more straight, I'd like to say. You remember that the A part of Salt Creek was 3 beats of A and then 1 beat of D, followed by 3 beats of G and 1 beat of E. So it's a 3-1, 3-1 pattern with a turnaround measure at the end. The B part's a little straighter. It'll have a measure of the A, a measure of the G, then a measure of the A, and then a half measure. Here's the turnaround part. 2 beats of the G, and then 1 E and 1 G. So the last measure is a turnaround, but it will be 2 G's, 1 E, and 1 A. So let's break it down bit by bit. Here's the melody that we'll play over the first measure of the A chord. Again, if you remove the melody, remove the rolls, you have a sketch of the melody. So, what leaps to mind for me is I'm going to try to improvise with that melody. I would try to think, what's another way I could play that melody, but not have it on the first string in those locations? Well, being on the first string means that you don't have another string below. The only string that's higher than the first is the 5th. So unless you want to try to play some roll patterns where you fret the 5th string a lot, you probably wouldn't want to do much with that. You'd just be stuck playing on the first string. Or you could think about this. You could say, oh, wait a minute. The first string is tuned the same as the 4th. They're an octave apart. So anything I play on the first string, I can also play on the 4th string. That means open and fretted. So if I think about the fret positions, I should be able to play that on the 4th string, but modify my rolls. Or this. I could also find this note fretted in the same place as here. So I have a couple of options here. I could stay on the 4th string, or I could find this note, which is a B note, and then the open A note. I'm going to choose this. Now what rolls would I play? Anything that helps me carry these notes. Or maybe add an ornament. Hammer onto, or hammer to the fret, or slide in. Anything that would accentuate those 2 notes. So now I have basically a lower octave version of the same part of the solo that we're doing. So let's go with that. So that will be the same basic approach, playing the melody with rolls, but we're moving it to a lower octave. Now, what about the G? Now we could do the same thing again. We could say, okay, what's the melody notes for G? Actually, there's only a couple. really the one that really The one that stands out as being the primary building block melody note over this G chord is just this note. One lonely G note. And then you could say, well, how long does that last? Well, we could call that a quarter note if you like. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and of nothingness, a rest. So that's why you see most players play the first string first, and then they will play what's left over of the chord as roll patterns. So it's chord filler. And then what I was doing in my example was just a way to escape the G. But I'm going to play this note first, and then try to escape the G with these two notes. But you don't have to have those notes. You could just play the first string out of the chord and just hang in the G. That'll work too. So we could do that on the 4th string. We could just let that be the melody note, because that's also a G. That's the melody note, and this is a lower octave version of it. But what happens there is it gets a little repetitive, because we've already moved the melody from here to here. So I don't want things to be too much of a carbon copy. So instead of playing this as our melody note and then filling it around, now I'm going to jump to the melodic style. I'm going to play this melodic scale fragment for G. This is a revamped version of a G major scale. And again, we're trying to cover 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, a measure of G. So this particular melodic passage that I'm playing only lasts 2 beats. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. So what I need to do is play it almost twice. So if I play that twice, it will cover the measure of G, but more importantly, it has this as the first note, and then it repeats that note. Now why would I do that? Well, that's a melody note. We just moved from here to here. So they're both G notes, but I want to make sure, even though this is a melodic passage and it's a way to improvise with the melody, I want to make sure I keep some of the melody intact, which is that one lonely note. So now I have this. And now I'm going to leave out this note at the end. I'm not going to come back to that. I'm going to leave a rest, which sets me up to go to the next measure. But you might say, okay, that was cool, John, but how did you play that? Let's break the actual passage down that I used. I played the 4th string at 5, open 3rd, the 4th string at 9, the 3rd string at 7, open 1st, back to the 7th fret of the 3rd, the 4th string at 9, then the open 3rd, and the open 3rd is like a transition note to get you to play the same thing again. So it's 4, 3, 4, 3, 1, 3, 4, 3. Then that gives me the opportunity to play it again. 4, 3, 4, 3, 1, 3, 4, 3. But I'm not going to play this note at the end, even though that would give me 2 complete rolls. I'm going to leave a small rest there, so that note would become a rest. And that leaves me just enough time to come back and play the next measure of A, which is the same thing as the first measure. Now we get to this turnaround section, where we have condensed changes inside a measure. 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 1. And usually what happens on tunes like this, when you get to the turnaround measure at the end of a section of a song like this, it's not really as important to play so much melody as it is to find a way to play tag licks. You know, we all know tag licks as Scruggs players. So whatever you want to put at the end of this, you could. But I would recommend that you play the 2 beats of the G chord. make sure that you play the melody note somehow, like if you choose the low octave. And then you can use whatever tag lick you think you can squeeze in. I'm going to forego Scruggs tags, and I'm actually going to reuse the position that we just played. I'm going to keep this melody note intact, even though it's only 2 beats of G this time. I'm just not going to come back on itself like I did before. I'm not going to come back to this G note. I'm going to keep going up the neck and convert this into a pretty cool, funky sounding melodic riff that will cover that turnaround. What is that? Well, that's the same riff we used before. 4th string, 3rd string open. These are the same 2 notes I used before. 3rd string, 1st string. Now I'm going to the 2nd string at 8, which is a G note. So it's 4, 3, 4, 3, 1, 2, 5, open. Now this is a chromatic position. This is a B, and that would be a B flat note, B and B flat. And I'm just going to use those 2 notes for a cool chromatic little curve here. I'm actually going to go 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 4, 3, 4, 3, 1, 2, 5, 2, 1, 2, 5, and then back to this note at 8 on the 2nd. And then to end it, to resolve it back to the A chord, I'll play the 5th. Now if I put all that together, here's my new version of the B part of Salt Creek. Repeat. And as we did in the A part, if you start chopping up sections and slicing and dicing and cut and paste, whatever you want to call it, you could take the standard version and do half of the A part, the standard version, and replace the repeat of the A part with that new stuff that we did in the previous video. You could do the same thing with the B part. You could play your traditional version, and then you could decide here, oh, instead of this traditional F version, I'm just going to substitute. I'm just going to play that and then go back to the standard version. And then you could use standard Scruggs licks here, or you could use that lick for the end. So if you cut and paste different sections of the B part together, you could have the standard traditional version, you know, and you could slide in as many different pieces as you want of this new stuff here and there, or you could play a completely new version using stuff we use today. And more than likely what's going to happen is when you start doing some of these things that I'm showing you in this video, your mind's going to want to wander with it, which is great, and you'll take some of my ideas and something else will hit you and you'll say, well, you know, I'm not going to do it exactly like John did in that video. I've got an idea here. I'm going to turn some notes back on themselves differently. I'm going to come into the lick that he's doing differently. You know, what it's going to do is going to open your mind up to new possibilities, and you'll probably come up with licks that are a lot better than what I'm doing, which is good. So anyway, this is going to wrap up the B part of Salt Creek, and I guess we'll just trudge into another song next time. I appreciate you watching. I hope you had fun, and I'll see you next time.